I backed away from the house slowly, deciding not to wait around and see what would follow. Sarah's backyard wasn't big, and it was separated from her neighbors by a measly picket fence, easy to jump over for a hasty getaway, since I wasn't about to go through the house and risk being seen. Luckily, her neighbor didn't have any dogs, and didn't even appear to be at home actually, so I ran through their yard and emerged on another street. With no destination in mind, I wandered the town for a while as I planned my next move. First things first, I needed to contact Markus, but he wouldn't answer his phone. I tried calling him over 20 times, only to be met by his voicemail. "You've called Detective Markus. If I didn't answer, I'm either busy with work, I'm sleeping, or I'm dead. Leave a message after the beep and I'll call you back either when I'm done with work, when I wake up, or when I'm resurrected." "Hey Markus, it's me, Clancy. Sarah's on to us. She's 100% the Mimic. I ran away. Call me back as soon as you can." And just to be sure, I sent him a text as well. "Sarah's on to us. Call me back ASAP." With that taken care of, I needed to decide where to hide. I still lived with my parents, and their house was obviously out of the question. It would have been the first place Sarah checked for me. Without a place of my own, and with few friends that also still lived with their parents or in college dorms, my options were down to nothing. No choice. Gotta take my chances at home, I decided. I did tell her that Dad was away, so maybe my lie would buy me a bit of time. It was also across town, so at the very least it would put some distance between me and her. I reached it in a half an hour later on foot and tried to call Dad, but he wouldn't pick up either. Straight to voicemail. Same with Mom, who'd usually answer her phone even at work. I banged on the door. I tried calling both of their phones again and again, all to no avail. Fine, I'll let myself in then. We had one of those fake, hollowed-out garden rocks where we kept an extra set of keys, but lifting it up, I found the spares missing. What the hell? I wondered out loud. We never misplaced those keys. Dad was very insistent about it. I felt another pang of panic, and my thoughts instantly went to Sarah. Did she anticipate this scenario? Did she steal the keys? No, that couldn't be. I had her under watch ever since she came back. Unless... The recording she stopped. Was it for this? So she could leave her house, run across town, and take the keys? She definitely would have had enough time until I woke up. But no, that made no sense. If she'd done that, if she'd gotten so close to Dad, she would have made her presence known to him. Amy, maybe? That didn't make much sense either. I couldn't just assume guilt all willy-nilly. Amy was probably a victim of the charade, not an accomplice. No, I have to dial back on the paranoia. Someone simply used them and forgot to put them back. My phone started ringing, but it was an unknown number. I was tempted to answer, thinking it might have been Markus, but I didn't. It rang until it was directed to voicemail, so I waited and bated breath to see if the person would leave a message. No dice. "Hey, it's Amy. Where are you? Sarah's worried." A text popped up on my screen soon after. "Speak of the devil," I mumbled to no one in particular. I didn't respond to them, of course, and fortunately they didn't try again. So I waited on the porch for either Mom or Dad to come home and let me in, trying to decide what lies to spin for them. A few minutes turned into half an hour, then into an hour, then into 2, but neither one arrived. I checked my phone. 5 p.m. Any minute now. I kept trying to reach Markus in the meantime. I think I made 50 calls at the very least, but none of them went through. 6 p.m. came and went, then 7, and my parents showed no signs of returning. That, of course, only served to exacerbate my distress. Something was wrong. Very, very wrong. With 8 p.m. around the corner and no one answering their goddamn phones, I decided to break into my own house. I smashed out one of the small windows on the front door with a fake rock, unlocked it from inside, and made my way in. Half of me expected to find my parents waiting in the dark, or worse yet, as 2-day-old corpses. But the house was empty. The rest of the evening was spent in silence and dread, with me looking out the window every other minute expecting Sarah and Amy to come knocking, which they didn't. I locked up everything I could. I went to the garage to get something to patch up the broken window. It was a nice diversion from my worries. I always found that keeping busy helped me. As I was nailing a plank over the gap, my phone dinged. Can't call. Driving back right now. I handed the case to another hunter. Hold out until tomorrow. Thank God, I thought, feeling a wave of relief washing over me as I read the text. Markus would come to my rescue, and he'd know exactly what to do to sort out the mess. He'd fix everything, and I could go on with my life. For a few moments, I nearly melted away. But let me assure you, the calmness I felt was short-lived. I tried to call my parents again, to see why they weren't home yet despite the late hour, and I heard faint ringtones coming from upstairs. I followed the sound with shaking steps, hearing it grow louder as I approached the door of their bedroom. It came from inside, and I paused with my hand on the door's handle for what felt like a short eternity. I couldn't bring myself to go through with it, to throw it open and face the potential horrors inside. Images of the two of them dead, sprawled on their bed as their flesh rotted away, invaded my mind. I shook from my very core. Come on, I urged my body. Move, please. I closed my eyes and, with my breath hitching in my throat, I turned the handle. The door was unlocked, and I opened it with loud squeals that resounded throughout the house. I braced myself for the putrid smell I expected would follow, but it didn't come. Stale air with an undertone of cheap laundry detergent wafted out instead, calming my short nerves. I opened my eyes, finding the room empty. After thanking every deity I could think of for sparing me of the gruesome sights, I went inside and started searching. Their phones were on the nightstand besides the bed, displaying all of my missed calls. Sarah got them after all. She was just smart enough to not leave the bodies here. I couldn't sleep much that night, so instead I got a crowbar from the garage and made rounds around the house. I double and triple checked all of the doors and windows to make sure they were locked, then I hunkered down and waited. The coffee machine worked overtime as I pumped my veins full of caffeine and nicotine in an effort to stave off my exhaustion. After nearly 2 weeks of improper sleep, I was starting to feel the effects. It will all be okay. It won't last much longer. I tried to reassure myself. I only need to hold out for tonight and tomorrow, then Markus will save my sorry ass and I'll be able to sleep for 3 days straight. That's how I spent most of that night, wide awake in the dark kitchen with the crowbar by my side. I wrote the previous post to keep myself busy, and I jumped at every little sound that came from outside. Midnight came and passed, and I found myself dozing off into short bursts of micro-sleep. Come on, I urged myself. Stay awake, damn it. My head lolled down towards the counter, and when I realized I wouldn't last, I got a hold of the crowbar. I smashed it down on my own toes, and the pain jolted me awake real quick. With a now hurting foot and a clearer mind, I got up and walked around the house again. My hope was that, if I kept on the move, I'd have less trouble remaining alert. More sounds came from outside, in the form of passing cars or wandering animals, but I checked them regardless. I ran around between the windows, parting the drapes only enough to see without being seen myself. To my relief, none of the cars that passed were the same, so for the meantime I wasn't being stalked. By sunrise, around 7 a.m. or so, I finally couldn't take it anymore. I was a wreck in every sense of the word, and fatigue did me in. I'm not sure when or how it happened, but I think I just fell off my feet and went to sleep on the floor because I don't remember ever laying down. It was fitful, and an all-around too short. The phone's ringing woke me up a couple of hours later, at around 9 a.m. I jolted to my feet, with my heart pounding so fast that I was afraid it would break free from my chest. You probably know the sensation. That distant panic of being woken suddenly by loud sounds. At any rate, I checked the phone and saw Amy's number. I half wanted to just throw the damn thing against the wall and break it, but I stopped myself when I realized it was my only lifeline to Markus. The call went to voicemail, and I received a text soon after. "Where are you, Clancy?" A steady buzzing burrowed into my brain, nestling between my thoughts. My temples ached from the lack of sleep, and when I tried to rub the hurt away, it spread to the rest of my scalp. "You said you wanted to talk without Sarah around, so let's meet somewhere. Just the two of us." Another text from Amy, and one that felt distinctly like a trap. I didn't want to respond and risk falling for it, but I reminded myself that Amy could have been a victim as well. Maybe I still had time to change her mind and get her on my side. "Where?" I shot a text back. "Wherever you want. Name a place." That set me a bit at ease. If it was really a trap, she wouldn't have offered to let me pick the location. I texted her the name of a small diner that served a killer breakfast and told her to be there in an hour. It gave me enough time to shower and change, and I took it freezing this time. The cold water helped sober me up, even if it couldn't get rid of the throbbing in my brain. I felt a bit more rejuvenated when I was done, so I hit the road, making a small detour to buy a pack of cigarettes. It was the same small shop I mentioned last time, as it was halfway between our houses and close to the diner. Only this time, it was empty save for the old cashier. A feeling of deep dread shot into me the moment I stepped foot inside. "You're being paranoid again," I told myself as I calmed down. "Get a grip, it's the lack of sleep." The lady bid me good morning, and we made small talk as I paid for the cigarettes. I went to pull out my wallet and rifle through it for change, but the moment I took my eyes off of her, I felt her staring at me. The same sensation I got from Sarah, setting in so fast and intense that it made me jump back. "Are you okay, dear?" the old woman asked as I bent down to pick up the wallet. Yeah, it's just, I'm tired, ma'am." "Good grief, you sure look the part. You're so young. You should take better care of yourself," she scolded. Not in a belittling way, but more in that grandma worried for her grandkids way. "I will," I reassured her. "I'm just going through a rough patch, that's all." I got out a few bills and coins, placed them on the counter in front of her, and turned to leave. "Have a good day, sweetie." My ears likely played tricks on me, but I could swear in that moment that her voice cracked just a little. It sent a chill crawling down my spine and put a spring in my step, sending me into high alert as I power walked away. "You're imagining things," I insisted. "You're tired, you're not thinking straight. Get a grip." I tried my best to do just that as I headed for the diner, but I failed miserably. The encounter stuck with me, rippling through my mind and leaving behind more paranoia in its wake. Was Sarah the only mimic? Were there more of them? Why was everyone looking at me as I walked, shooting me glances from the corners of their eyes? Was I acting strange, giving them a reason to? Or were they onto me as well? I slapped myself when I realized just how absurd I sounded, and it helped to set me straight, even if just a bit. I didn't have any proof of more mimics. No reason whatsoever to believe that it could multiply and spread. A few minutes later, I reached the diner. It's a dingy little place, dirty and sticky most of the time. But I always found that places like these served the best damn food. Some tables were outside, COVID restrictions and all that, and I saw Amy on her phone at one of them. She wasn't talking to anyone, just browsing the internet by the looks of it. "Hey," I greeted, approaching her and sitting down. "Morning," she answered, locking the phone and placing it on the table face down. "How's it going?" "Not doing hot, I won't lie," I admitted. "No shit," Amy said with a giggle. "I mean, no offense, but you look like total crap." I let out an awkward laugh as I rubbed the back of my head, because ouch, offense taken. Yeah, I know. I'm not usually like this, but the last couple of weeks were stressful. "I imagine." "So, where's Sarah?" "At home, sleeping. She was awake almost all night worrying over where you went, so she's tired out," Amy answered, with a bit of anger in her voice. "Did you tell her we're meeting up?" I asked. "No," Amy answered. "You said you didn't want her to know, and I figured we'd have enough time to talk. Knowing her, she'll be out cold until around noon." "Okay. Thank you for giving me another chance." "Here to help," Amy said, and her frown melted into a shy smile. "Sarah's a good friend, so if she worries over you, I'll worry over you." The conversation veered off after that, but I decided to let it. I needed to distract myself, to think of something else, even if only for a short while. We talked about our personal lives, like our jobs and studies and whatnot, but I was careful not to share too many details. The waiter came and took our orders, returning with our food and drinks in what felt like a blink. "And then a teacher caught us, and I got suspended for a week." Amy finished telling me about some of her high school misadventures. "But you should have seen Clara's face. It was totally worth it. Probably took a month to clean that shit off her windshield." "I bet she didn't mess around with you guys after that," I said with a laugh. "You bet she didn't. She avoided us like the plague." Never really had problems with bullies myself. I was friends with the jocks and they kept me safe. But I did get into trouble when a teacher caught us smoking behind the gym. "So you started early, huh?" Amy asked. "Yeah, I was a stupid teen that wanted to be cool, but I regret it to this day," I admitted. "So quit." "Oh, sure. 'Cause it's that easy to curb an addiction," I quipped. "I mean, how didn't I think of that idea myself? It's genius." We laughed it off, and Amy seemed to dig my humor as far as I could tell. She was a bit awkward still, but she was nice overall. I could get used to that, to having her around more often, to maybe date her, to be happy, you know? But the worries resurfaced, sourcing my mood. They reminded me that Sarah was still out there, that I couldn't let my guard down and rest until I took care of things. So I didn't waste any more time and went on the offensive. "So, about Sarah." Amy's smile died a fast, pathetic death, and she let out a long sigh. "What about her?" I want to discuss her. To convince you. You can't convince me. Monsters aren't real. Just listen to yourself for a second. Come on. No. I have proof this time. Here, I said and pulled out my phone. I fumbled with it for a few seconds, pulling up the recording. Amy watched me with distrust and pity, as if she was facing a madman. Look, I set up the phone to record audio and... There we go again. Amy let out a tired voice. More recordings. No, just listen to it, okay? I mumbled, skipping through to the end. I set it up, and Sarah turned it off while I slept. It played, and Amy actually listened. She was surprised by what went down, but I could see that she wasn't convinced. If anything, that's only more proof that she has mental problems, and no offense, I strongly suspect you do as well. Maybe it runs in your family. And if that's the case, you both need help. No, it's not that she stopped it. That's not the point, I defended. The phone was face down on the table. What reason would she have to suspect I'm recording? She either did because she's done it as well when she faced the mimic, or she is the mimic, and she learned from her encounter with the real Sarah. Or she's crazy. Amy raised her voice. She has the same delusions you do. She's just as paranoid as you. She also deleted the texts, the conversations I had with Markus, the detective. I burst out. I felt like I was on the brink of convincing her, of winning her over. That she only needed the slightest push in the right direction, and I'd have myself an ally. So... She started, but I cut over her. And what about the body? The one we buried? There wasn't a body, Clancy, Amy said. I went completely silent at that. I was dumbfounded. You could have heard a pin drop if you were there. Our respective outbursts had garnered us the stares of the other patrons, and I felt their eyes on me. What? I asked in a hushed tone as I looked around. That's why I wanted to meet up with you and talk, Amy explained. A murder is a pretty heavy accusation to throw around, so after you ran off, I called 911. The words possible murder mobilized them real fast. 2 officers were at the door in less than 5 minutes. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but I knew that I fucked up. Markus explicitly asked me to keep an eye on Sarah, to keep her isolated, and I failed. The other patrons returned to their own business, but a couple of them at different tables still shot me glances every so often. Those same cold, calculated glances that Sarah shot me, sending my paranoia into overdrive. Control yourself, I reminded myself. You made a scene. People are bound to be curious. They're not mimics. They're just worried. The 2 cops recognized the house right away. Amy kept talking, and I had to try very hard to focus on her words. They were the same ones that checked up on Sarah before, when she was having her breakdown. So they thought that she finally went off the rails hard enough to kill someone. But I explained the situation to them. I brought up your accusations, and they assured me that something like that never happened. No, I stammered. No. That's wrong. That's wrong. I was there. There when the body was pulled out on the stretcher. There at the funeral. There for all of it. She died. Someone died. I swear on my life. I was so fired up, so absorbed by my rant, that I didn't notice getting up from the chair and leaning on the table. Amy pulled back from me, with fear evident in her eyes. But to her credit, she composed herself fast. It's worse than I thought. she answered. Clancy, you had a mental breakdown as well, okay? It wasn't real. None of it was real. Some of the other patrons moved to get up as soon as she did, likely expecting a scuffle. Amy walked around the table slowly, lifting her hands up as if to say she wasn't a threat. Look, she continued, I know that it's hard to hear, that it's hard to come to terms with the fact that your own mind has been lying to you, but it's the truth. I'm not here to accuse you of anything. I'm not here to get you in trouble. I'm here to help, okay? Will you let me help you? We don't need to call the cops or anything. Just come back with me to Sarah's place. We'll talk it out. We'll give you your space and let you calm down. We'll do this on your terms, okay? You'll be in control at all times, and when you feel ready, I'll help you look for professional help. My parents, Dad and Mom. I tried a final tactic. They're gone too. Please, you have to believe me. Sarah is the mimic and she murdered them. Your parents are away on vacation, Clancy. Amy rebuked me. To the Grand Canyon. No, that's the lie I told Sarah to keep her away from them, I answered, certain that I finally had her. I told her they left their phones at home, and lo and behold, I find their phones at home. But they didn't go anywhere. It was a lie. They've been planning this vacation for months. Even I've heard about it. Sarah wouldn't shut up about them. She wanted to go too, but couldn't get the time off work. No. This is wrong. It's all wrong. I know it feels wrong, but please, believe me, Clancy. She reached out for me, but I recoiled. It couldn't be. It was all wrong. It was, I swear. It was my own lie, spat back at me as truth. I felt trapped, suffocated, like the world itself shrunk around me and pinned me into place. It was all wrong. Amy took another step towards me, and I could see the other patrons getting on the move as well. They'd catch me. They'd catch me and they'd lock me up in the loony bin. Or worse yet, they'd take me back to Sarah. I couldn't allow it, but in that moment I felt entirely powerless to stop it. Run, I thought. God fucking damn it, run! Without another word, I turned and bolted down the street. Clancy, wait! I ran, faster than I've ever run in my entire life. My lungs were burning up, and my feet were full of lead pulling me down, but I ran. I couldn't stop. Couldn't hesitate even for a moment. Not when it felt like the entire world was chasing after me. Why? What did I do to deserve this? Any of this? I was paranoid, sure, but who wouldn't be in my situation? What I wasn't, though, was crazy. I was sane, for fuck's sake. It was them fucking with me, making me doubt my own memories. More calls came as I ran home, but I didn't even bother to check my phone. I couldn't stop. When I finally arrived and locked myself inside, I saw they were all from Amy, predictably enough. She made about 10 calls and sent a few texts as well. Please, Clancy, come back. I don't mean you any harm, I swear. I just want to help you. Think about your parents. Think about Sarah. Hell, think about yourself. No, I told myself. I need to wait for Markus. I need to last for just a little while longer. He'll be here any minute now, and he'll sort this shit out. I looked out one of the windows to see if anyone had followed me, but they hadn't. Still, that didn't mean I could stay put until Markus returned. I was too easy to find. I was a sitting duck. I needed to either hide or get on the move. No place to tuck myself in came to mind, so I'd have to do the latter. I changed my clothes, dressing in some of Dad's old tracksuits and jackets. They were baggier and did a better job in concealing my face. As I did that, I tried to decide where to go and what to do. I couldn't wander the streets aimlessly. I had to stay among people, to blend in the crowd, and hopefully have a shot at calling out for help if I was found. But our town wasn't very big. We didn't have malls or busy districts. Some bar then, I decided. We had a few of those, and they were rarely empty. So I left the house and headed for the farthest bar I could think of, hoping it would be the last one Sarah and Amy would check. I kept my head down on the way there, trying my damn hardest not to attract attention. When I made it half an hour later, I let out a sigh of relief. I went in, found a table in the back of the room, and made myself comfortable. It was one of those sports bars, always displaying some match or another, I don't know. I'm not big into sports, and my mind was in an entirely different place the whole time I was there. The waitress came over after a few minutes, but I didn't notice her until she cleared her throat to get my attention. Ahem. Oh, I jumped back. Sorry, I had a crappy day and was distracted. That's okay. Will you have anything? Sure. Bring me a beer, please. Any preferences? She asked. Whichever one you have, really doesn't matter. And keep the tab open. I'm waiting for someone, so I'll be here for a while. Okay, I'll be right back. She wandered off to serve the other patrons, so I got busy with my phone. It finally hit me that it had no password, even though I distinctly remember I had one set up. Another thing that Sarah did to mess with me? Was my memory really failing? I decided it didn't matter at that moment, so I set a new one and texted Markus. They're trying to get me. I'm on the run. Call me when you get in town and we'll meet up. The waitress returned a few minutes later with a mug of beer. Then she was off again. I sipped from it occasionally, but my focus was on my phone, watching seconds turn into minutes with bated breath. The finish line was within reach, and I couldn't wait for the terror and paranoia to be over. I was tired. More episodes of microsleep came and went, but no one seemed to notice or even care. But they left me worried, as they caused my attention to falter. About an hour later, around lunch, Markus finally texted me back. Seeing the notification pop up on the screen got my heart pounding faster, chasing away the fatigue for the meantime. I'm almost there. We'll probably arrive near sundown. I felt relief washing over me, as sundown wasn't far off. Winter and all that. I only needed to last for 4 or 5 hours more at most, and I was confident enough that I could do it. I didn't feel watched here, didn't feel observed, so it was safe. All I needed to do was stay awake, to keep the beers coming, and I wouldn't be kicked out of the bar. So long as I sipped them slow enough to not get drunk, I'd be fine. Amy tried to contact me again. More calls and texts spread out over the remainder of the day, but I didn't answer. I won't transcribe the texts because they were just more of the same. Variations of, "Where are you?" and "Come back. Sarah's worried." Time flew by, and before I noticed it was getting dark outside. The sun touched the horizon, draping the world in shades of orange and red. My phone rang again, and to my utter delight, it was Markus. "Bring me the tab, please," I yelled to the waitress before I answered. "Hey. How's it going? How are you?" Markus asked right away. "Tired and paranoid as all hell, but I'll manage." "Good, because I might need you to pull an all-nighter and help me out." The waitress brought me the tab. and I did a double take seeing the price. $25 for a few beers? Will do. Can't wait for this to be over with, I answered, pulling out $30 and handing them to her. Keep the change. What was that? Nothing, don't worry. I got up from the table and walked towards the exit, re-energized by the hope coursing through me. Where do you want to meet up? Pick a place and I'll be right over. I'm entering your town now. Okay, let's... Wait a sec. A cop car just got on the road behind me. I think they want to pull me over. Fuck, were you speeding? We don't have time for a ticket right now, I grunted. I wasn't. It's... Markus was cut off by a loud crash. It sounded like metal bending and glass shattering, almost deafening even through the phone's speakers. The fuck? They rammed me! Markus yelled. Fuck! Get away! I'm trying, but they're after me. They want to run me off the road. Another crash, this one even louder. Markus cursed in the background, and the sounds of tires screaming on the asphalt followed. I don't know what's going on. I'll call you back. No, wait! The call ended abruptly, leaving me stunned. What the hell was going on? I left the bar, lit up a cigarette, and paced back and forth in the street as stress consumed me. Markus was so close. He was right fucking here. He wouldn't fail. He couldn't fail. No. He'd get away, and he'd reach me, and it would all be fine. Yeah, he'll be fine. He's a goddamn monster hunter. A couple more minutes passed, with no sign from him. I finished the cigarette fast, but I lit up another one right away. I needed to distract myself, to keep calm, to not let the paranoia sink in. It couldn't get its teeth into me again. I wouldn't allow it. I refreshed the texting app constantly, waiting, feeling my breathing speeding up. A ding came, and with it, a notification and another text. Reading it felt like a gut punch. The floodgates broke, and the tide of terror I struggled to keep at bay flooded me. I went lightheaded and dizzy, shaking on my feet, as if the world around me spun out of control. 4 words. 4 goddamn words, and an incomplete text. Run. There's more of